welcome to the MMA Roadshow, episode number 113. My name is John Morgan in Stockholm, Sweden right now, joined by a crew. We got the European contingent in the house. I should say, first of all, a welcome to MMA Junkie's own Chamatkar Sandhu. From MMAnytt, or something like that, Sebastian Vendel-Martinez. We'll just go with Seb and Sandhu to make things a little bit easier on the listeners and on ourselves. Abby Saban is over there putting in some work. It's still daylight outside. It's 9 o'clock at night in Stockholm, but it's still daylight outside. It's only getting dark for about 4 hours a night right now, which is crazy, but very, very cool. And I should say we've got the awesome setup because of our own MMA junkie pair, who has got us set up in his awesome day job. He of course, you know him as the photographer for MMA Junkie, but he's got a real job as well. And we are in some prime real estate in Stockholm. We've apparently his office has like a bar in it, and we're just kind of basically mooching off their alcohol.
Yeah, there's a bar, there's a kitchen, there's couches. It's a
There's
well.
like 12 couches.
Yeah,
Crazy.
it's a well-stocked bar.
We could all
Thank
live
you very
here.
much.
We could bring our families.
Somebody probably does live here, and they don't know it. This place is so big, man.
There's probably someone here right now, and we don't know about it.
It's insane, man. This place is nice. So I really want to thank him for hosting us because I should say the hotel that we're staying at, we couldn't even fit all of us in my room. It's tiny. Real estate is it's tiny. It's an expensive place.
Yeah, a certain stark in contrast to some previous Airbnb apartments in Stockholm.
Dude, I am so appreciative now. We didn't appreciate what we had.
We didn't.
I mean, we had a multi-million-dollar apartment that we stayed in. I don't remember which Stockholm event that was for, but we had basically a multi-million-dollar setup there. It was massive. And now that I've been here more frequently, I get it. I understand now. We were not appreciative of what we had.
You understand why everyone here is so pissed off about the living space we have?
I'm pretty sure it was for Johnson versus Gustafsson.
I was thinking that
Was
too.
it?
I think so. And for anyone, just going to give people listening a bit of a visual. If you remember the old MTV show Cribs, this place that we were staying in for that particular event in Stockholm could easily fit into an episode of MTV Cribs.
Easy. It was money. I can't even believe they rented it out, man. That's nuts. We tried to find it again. Not so much. Apparently Airbnb is now illegal in Stockholm, number one. Number two, there was a huge soccer game going on yesterday, the UEFA Cup final that we didn't know about, so that probably factored into it. So anyway, crazy week in Stockholm. We are here, of course, for UFC Fight Night 109, Gustafsson versus Teixeira. And Seb, I'll just throw it to you as the Swedish guy first. I got to say, I mean, we could talk about the card as a whole, but I just want to talk about just the feel, I guess. And maybe, I don't know if it's the card as a whole or if it's just Alex. Am I right in thinking there's not quite the hype this time around, or is it just because, I mean, we haven't been here that long yet. We've been working. We haven't really gotten out and about a whole lot. But I don't know. I feel like maybe there's not quite the energy and the enthusiasm maybe that there once was for whether it be Alex or whether it be just for this card.
Well, I'd have to agree with you, actually. I mean, it kind of hurts to say, but it does feel like this event is a little bit under-publicized in comparison to other events. And I think that's actually for a variety of reasons. We don't really have a whole lot of other super strong Swedish stars right now, aside from Gustafsson and Latifi, both of who are top 10 guys. Gustafsson is coming off of I guess you could say, kind of a lukewarm performance. It was a solid win over Jan Blachowicz, but it wasn't the kind of performance that necessarily gets you booked on talk shows right away. And I think that's been a little bit of a problem. It's been kind of a mainstream media's disinterest, whereas Gustafsson was a big interest for, Channel 4 and Channel 1 before. Now, when career-wise, he's kind of stagnated a little bit. He hasn't really made that big leap back into title contention, which means that the mainstream media isn't really covering it as much, meaning that mainstream sponsors and other interests aren't really quite as interested. And when you look at the rest of the card, I think a lot of Swedish MMA fans are very interested. But a lot of mainstream fans are kind of wondering, wait, who are these two guys in the co-main event?
Well, let's talk about Alexander first. I mean, is the lack of enthusiasm because of the performance? Is it because of, I wonder, does it all go back to the loss to Anthony Johnson where 30,000 people were disappointed in the middle of the night? Does it go back to the fact that maybe he's not fighting very frequently? Does it go to the fact that he's not necessarily the world's most enthusiastic interview? Is there anything that you can put your finger on? Because I mean, the guy is definitely, he's known here. There's no doubt about that. I mean, you talk to anybody, and they're, you know, oh, the UFC. They're like, what? The UFC? Like, oh, in fact, when I checked with Customs, I'm like, I'm here to cover the UFC event. And they were like, what? The what? And I'm like, Alexander Gustin. And the guy's, oh, okay, yeah, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
They definitely know his name, but is there something you can put your hand, you put your finger on as to maybe why it's not, Conor McGregor-esque in their enthusiasm for him?
Well, I mean, he's definitely lacking in the personality department. I mean, let's face it. I mean, you put any one of us next to Conor McGregor, and we're gonna have the personality of a toothbrush. Despite that, Gustafsson, he's not really the one who really extends himself towards the media in the same way. He's not the kind, aside from one very weird April Fool's joke where he pretended to go into retirement, that was his most retweeted, shared post ever almost.
That's hilarious.
He doesn't really do a whole lot of stuff in terms of reaching outwards towards the fans. I mean, career-wise, I mean, there was a lot of interest even after Anthony Johnson between him and DC, because obviously it was a title fight.
Sure.
And even slightly after that fight, because he did very well. It was a close fight. It was a split decision. People were still kind of interested in where he was going after that. But I think perhaps the biggest problem is that he's not keeping himself relevant, because his sort of lacking in media presence online isn't really helped by the fact that he's fighting like once or twice a year. He was supposed to fight before, obviously, against Nogueira, but got injured. But unfortunately, it seems like injuries is something that really is plaguing his career and could damage it overall, because unfortunately, if you're not going to be a viable presence inside the cage, you have to be outside of it. And right now, he's not really either one of those. He's still popular in terms of the folk, European rankings and stuff like that. In terms of UFC rankings, obviously he's very high towards the top, but he's not the guy who's going to just jump off your lips in terms of who are we going to get on UFC tonight? Who are we going to talk about? We're going to get the fans really excited. And I think he kind of needs to maybe take some inspiration from Conor McGregor, or if not that, then he needs to really make sure that he does not get injured as often as he has been lately.
Is there personality behind the mask that we don't see? You know what I mean? Obviously, you being a little closer to him and seeing things a little more frequently. I mean, is there personality that we just don't see, or is that just the guy he is?
There is more personality to it, but I don't know if that personality necessarily translates internationally. I mean, having a personality in Swedish terms won't necessarily make him as colorful abroad, because I do feel like he does have a little bit of a, I don't know, kind of a Asperger's-y humor, where he'll make these kind of weird little jokes and comments that I think are a lot of fun. And I
mean that in the most respectful way possible.
Definitely. Take it from someone who was diagnosed with it. But, I mean, he does have more personality than what we see, and obviously the language barrier is there as well, which does make it a little bit harder.
Right.
But it's not a whole lot stronger in Swedish, to be honest.
Sandhu, let's talk about you. I mean, from a British perspective, it's funny because I feel, and I talked to Joe Carr about this, and I'll share some of that in a little bit. But I mean, I really do feel like it's plain to see that it's the MMA and UFC especially has never been more popular or as strong in Europe as it is right now. I mean, the quality of talent. Obviously you've got champions now hailing from over here, and I feel like, of course, Conor McGregor, like he's almost grown beyond even calling him a European. He just is the sport now. But does he resonate outside of Sweden? I mean, even because I do feel like he struggles to really have a firm foothold, and as good as he is, and as high as his stock was after the fight with John Jones, I feel like, I don't know, in the States, I don't know that he resonates anymore, and I wonder, maybe a little closer to home over there in England, is there any star power there?
His stock isn't as high as it used to be, John. I mean, this is a man that headlined in the O2 Arena in London, and I remember that night because there was more Swedish fans in the O2 Arena, louder than the British fans chanting for Manua.
Yep.
So that tells you everything you need to know about the passionate hardcore fans here in Sweden, and how they would travel to support Alex. But I think it comes down to a lack of visibility both in and outside of the octagon. I was talking to Per this morning as we were taking a walk to meet you guys, and I remember, this is our 4th or 5th trip to Stockholm, right? We've been to all of Gustafsson's fights here. And in the past, I see his face splattered all over the newspapers. Front page, back page, 2-page spread. Me and Per went through the papers today. Nothing.
Yep.
I remember him having mainstream, TV presence here, whether it be on news outlets or interviews on daytime shows.
Yeah, who is pretty regularly making appearances.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember seeing some of that, just like walking past an electronics store in the evening, and you have these TVs and you see Gustafsson. I remember being in the airport flying in for a show, and in the airport they were showing Gustafsson being interviewed 9 o'clock in the evening on the news. I see none of that.
That's what I feel.
And listen, the event's on a Sunday.
Right.
Also, it's not a national holiday here in Sweden on Monday, so I don't know if that's going to affect ticket sales and attendance. Also, again, speaking to our friends here in Sweden, Per and Sebastian, this country is hibernating for most of the calendar year. It's the start of summertime. The weather here is gorgeous right now, and I think a lot of the people here want to try and spend as much of their free time outside instead of inside an arena. So maybe that might have an effect. I don't know. There's a lot of factors.
It's kind of a weird time, right? It's funny because the UEFA Cup final being here yesterday, it made hotels difficult for us to find. It made everything more expensive. I'm sure the same thing for the UFC. And it was funny because somebody hit me up on Twitter and they're like, "That was really smart of the UFC to book." I'm like, "There's no way that. I mean, people aren't staying from Wednesday to Sunday to watch a fight. It's not like it's the night before." So it's weird. And I guess maybe that all goes back to the fact that this was supposed to be in Copenhagen. And essentially what happened there was the new building was being done. They were trying to get details done, and they just didn't feel comfortable because they hadn't been in the building before, that everything was going to be done to their specifications. So they ended up moving it, and it worked out great, of course, because Alexander Gustafsson was available. So it all worked out well. But so maybe, I feel like you're right. There's a whole bunch of things that don't seem like they necessarily planned this one right. Now, I don't mean to say it's like an error on their part, but just like it wasn't like all the stars just lined up in a certain way. And what about the fact that there's KSW on Saturday and it's in a stadium? I mean, honestly, I'm not going to lie. I mean, if we cover the UFC more than anything else, and of course, most of our audience is an American audience. We do have an international following in MMAjunkie, but the largest portion is the United States. And truth be told, I actually kind of wanted to go to KSW on Saturday. I actually looked to see if I could get up there and back in a cost-effective manner and maybe do some coverage because it's a stadium show. I mean, they've sold 45,000 tickets already. 50,000 tickets.
Who wouldn't want to go to that?
Yeah, I don't think. I was talking to Dan Stupp, our boss, and he was like, "Dude, bottom line is it's not going to resonate with our audience." And it's right. It wouldn't get the clicks or whatever. But if I was a European media member, not going to lie, man, I would be real. This would be a hard call. Do you go to KSW? Or do you go to the UFC?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because I think tomorrow will be very telling. So we obviously got special access today with some interviews from some of the prelim and main card fighters. But I already know, and most of us know, there will be quite a few members of the European media that are traditionally at UFC events for Fight Week. And they're going to be in KSW this week. Yeah. So that'll tell you everything you need to know about that.
It's interesting, man. So 50,000, huge show. I think they've got, you guys were talking about it earlier, I think with 3 titles, 4 titles, something like that.
I think at least 4 titles.
Crazy. I mean, they basically did like the biggest card they possibly can. I know Mark Goddard is actually going to referee there and then be here on Sunday. So he's got a super busy weekend.
Double dipping,
man. Do it while you can.
Hope he's not tired when he gets in the cage.
I know, right? All right, we'll talk about the rest of the card in a little bit. I wanted to go back, man. It's been such a crazy week, dude. Incredibly crazy week. After we did the road show last week, so much stuff. Started off for me basically back in Las Vegas, doing a tour of the Performance Institute, the new facilities, the UFC headquarters, and of course the part with the athletes involved. And man, I'm telling you, I'm sure you guys by now have seen the clips that are out there, not just from us. I mean, there were other media outlets as well. Phenomenal facility, man. Phenomenal facility. And here's what I'm curious about. So this thing, I mean, I think anybody listening to this would know. I mean, they've had a look at it, but just to state it clearly, I mean, this is top of the art, state of the art, top of the line, like the best performance center you could possibly build. All free to any athlete on the roster. They can bring their coaches. They can bring their teammates. Their teammates can use the facility. Again, free of charge. They come in. They can get their breakfast prepared for them. They get their lunch prepared for them. They'll give them dietary recommendations on what they should eat for dinner. They can do rehab if they're injured. There's a rehab center right there. I mean, this is badass. And we've already seen Francis Ngannou move to Las Vegas. Basically, a huge part of that was because he wants to use that facility as kind of his home gym. Now, you still got to bring your own coaches. And they got strength and conditioning people there, but they're not going to have like technical coaches or anything like that. You got to bring your own technical coaches. But I wonder, and I started to talk to some of the athletes this week because I happen to be around some of them, but I wanted to kind of get your guys' perspective if you had heard about other European athletes. Because here's the real interesting part of this facility. There's no question that's top-notch. There's no question it's awesome. There's no question it's great if you're a fighter living in Las Vegas. But have you guys heard it all from fighters based over here if it's enough? Because the UFC won't pay for you to get over to Las Vegas. They're not going to pay for your housing in Las Vegas, which housing in Las Vegas is pretty cheap. I mean, you get a room on the Strip pretty cheap if you want, or you can get an Airbnb, stuff like that, pretty cheap. But I wonder, do you guys see European athletes, or have you heard of European athletes buying into this and saying, we're going to go try to take advantage of it?
I haven't personally so far, but what I have seen a trend in the last couple of years is a lot of UK and European fighters make a move over to the States or to North America in general, whether it's to the TriStar gym in Montreal or to the American Top Team facility. I think it's only a matter of time. I think the minute this starts to become a little bit more publicized and a bit more structured, and if fighters can figure out, right, okay, what coaches can I bring? Maybe they don't do a full 8, 10, 12-week camp in Vegas. Maybe they do 6 to 8 weeks, where they're comfortable, where they would normally do it, and then maybe they'll do 2 or 3 weeks in Vegas. Maybe, hey, if they're fighting on a Vegas card, they'll finish off their camp at the facility in Vegas, right? So I think once we start to see fighters like Francis Ngannou and others start to transition and move there, and we start to see what kind of feedback and reviews they're giving, which will be reflective in their performances, of course, then perhaps we'll start to see an influx of more fighters come over. Based
on the early feedback, just from me, seeing it, and it's funny, I actually went through the whole, they put us all through the motions. We were going to film it. We actually had Kenny there. Oh, who's that guy? We had Cold Coffee there. He was going to film everything, but what happened was Dana rolled through, and Dana started speaking to us and took a few questions from the media, and everybody, of course, asked about McGregor and Mayweather. And so as soon as we shot it, it was like, I was like, you got to go produce that. I mean, that's more important than – so we were going to shoot me going through the stuff and put out a little video or whatever. But based on what I saw, I mean, I think it's definitely worth it to at least go get an assessment. Maybe not do your whole camp there, but at least go over there and spend like a week, get an assessment, get the expertise of these, high-level strength and conditioning coaches that come from these like amazing backgrounds. Get like a perfectly tailored program that then you can come back and execute. So I think I definitely think people should take advantage of that. And the other thing, and this would be more in-camp type stuff, but this was kind of cool. Like I ran into Joe Lozon. Of course, he's kind of a tech nerd or whatever, but he was about to walk through it. And the cool thing, the Octagon has like these 8 like high-speed cameras, like the high def, the most you can get, and so you can go spar. And it was interesting. I was talking to you last night about this, Sandhu, but Joe Lozon told me he has every sparring session that he's ever had in his entire career. He still has the tape, and it's all been done on his iPhone.
Incredible.
So if you think people were doing that and using it for analysis, like going back and watching their own sparring sessions with iPhone footage, now you're going to be able to go back and do it with a high def. Fast
multiple angles.
You can really, and I think that's great because, hey, what is every sport trying to do right now? Football to everything else is like lower the impact. So of course you have to spar. I mean, you can't possibly prepare for a camp and not spar. But if you could do less of it and be able to get more out of it by analyzing it better, I think that's good for the athlete. So at least from my point of view, I think coming in and getting that assessment, getting some direction on your overall dietary needs, because that seems to be like the last piece of the puzzle for most fighters. It's like, you see guys that are in the UFC for like 6, 8, 10 fights, and they start to really succeed, and you're like, what changed? Well, I finally started paying attention to my diet. You're like, the hell, just now? Like, you think that would be a bigger thing? So that would be a part of it. And I think, again, that sparring analysis, so they can do maybe a little bit less of it, but get more out of it. I think people. I hope to see the fighters buy in because, everybody's talking about we need to do more for the fighters. Well, this is something the UFC has done, and I don't know. I hope they buy into it because there seems to be a buzz about it within the UFC, and there does seem to be, I think, some real benefits for the athletes.
In addition to just being able to use the facility, there's obviously going to be some media opportunities there as well.
Yes,
and listen, it doesn't hurt if you're going to be in Vegas and you're constantly passing by the boss. If you're kind of, hey, passing the corridor, hey Dana, what's going on? Can we talk about this? Can we talk about that? Or other executives in the organization, that's not going to hurt you either.
A little FaceTime's not bad at all. The other thing was the athlete retreat, which interesting, right? Because I've seen most of the media coverage of it, and to me, basically like everything that I've seen come out of it has been bad. There was the 50% off coupon from Reebok that a lot of people were like, what the hell? And it was kind of ridiculous. A 50% off coupon does seem stupid, but Reebok gave everybody gear while they were there. I mean, so people left with gear. It's not like they didn't get anything. They gave them free stuff, and they're like, and by the way, if you want to buy more, meaning like all of our other stuff that we have in other franchises, not just MMA gear, like here's a coupon. And I could tell you too, like looking at it, I think Reebok. I don't know this for a fact because we got to go walk through like the whole thing. There was Reebok branding like everywhere, and this setup was nice at the JW Marriott. First of all, nice hotel, and the setup, man, they had all this convention space, and it was all decked out, and it looked nice. And I think the way it looked is I think Reebok spent a lot of money to help make it happen because that shit's nice. I mean, think about flying in 300 people. I asked because I was like, why'd you guys do it at the JW Marriott? Does like WME own this? You know what I mean? Where like you could basically just do yourself a non-cost transfer of services. No, that's not the case. So they had to pay for all those hotel rooms. Snoop Dogg ain't doing a concert for free. I know him and Dana are boys, but I guarantee you he got some money for that. They ate for free, they drank for free. Oh, but man, it's expensive. Shit adds up, and I think Reebok spent a lot of money. So it sucks. So that was kind of bad. The other bad stories, of course, the fight between Cyborg and Magana. That wasn't great. And then of course the apparently drunk Budweiser rep that showed up in front of everybody. So it's funny, like that was negative. But I mean I can say, and at the risk, I'm sure somebody will listen to this and be like, you effing UFC cheerleader or whatever. Like everybody I talked to there was having a good time. It was like, this is dope, and again, I could see people saying, well, and I did see people F the retreat, F, I think Ally Quinta even said it, like just pay me more, like don't pay for this. But I think sometimes, like, let's say that thing cost enough that they could have given everybody on the roster, they could have just handed them $1,000 cash. I mean, that's nice, right? But that's not going to be like life-changing, the fact that they give them $1,000. Instead, they kind of got this thing where everybody got to gel together. They got to kind of voice their, thoughts and concerns. It's kind of like, last time we were in London and our whole junkie crew went out to dinner and I paid for it, not out of my pocket, obviously, because I ain't got that kind of money, but Gannett paid for it. I could have all just handed you guys like $50, but is that really the same as like having a nice team dinner and everybody working together? So I don't know, man, seeing this thing up close and Cold Coffee put together a nice little video package on it and we talked to people, I just feel like it was more positive than negative. I don't think anything's ever perfect, but I feel like the media just right now so wants to just jump on anything they can that all I saw out of it was negative coverage.
It's definitely negative in an unfair way, but at the same time, I don't see it working for everybody because at the end of the day, you're gonna have certain fighters who already were sort of toying with the idea of maybe moving to the States,
right.
And this will be perhaps that tipping point. But then you're going to have fighters like Ally Quinta, like a couple others who are like, no, I want to do my training camp at home. And honestly, nothing's going to change those people's minds. Mm-hmm. People have been screaming at Alexander Gustafsson for years to, like, maybe branch out a little bit. Let's face it, he's at home here. It's going to be very hard to convince him otherwise. Whereas you see Ilir Latifi, he went and trained with ATT and, he's changed things up a bit. I think it's going to depend very much on the fighter and what kind of mentality they have, because I don't think you're going to be able to convince certain fighters, even if you put like, an all year round, they'll pay for everything, you'll get free open bar, whatever. Like
I'd train there.
Yeah, I would too. I wouldn't get a whole lot of UFC fights but I would definitely train there. No, but I think that some fighters, no matter what you give them, like they've got their comfort zone. They know what they're comfortable with. They've got their trainers. They've got their home. They've got their climate, and that's good for them. But I do see this being a tipping point for certain fighters. I don't think it's going to be a huge percent, though.
Yeah. It was an interesting weekend, man. It was fun to see everybody kind of hanging out. We actually got to do a couple of interviews. We weren't really supposed to. I wanted to shoot it. I was begging them to let us do stuff, but they basically told the athletes when you come, like, there's no media obligations. Like, this is just a party. So they relented for a little bit. And we went and actually just did a couple of quick interviews, but nothing major. Because, man, in my head, I'm like, bro, we got 300 UFC fighters in town. Like, let's just get content for weeks. And, of course, we couldn't do that. Before the whole weekend kicked off, we did get to have a sit-down with Amanda Nunes, who was doing the media rounds. And interesting, man. It's funny. I don't know if you guys saw it because she said it a couple of times in a couple of interviews she did, because obviously she did the lunch with us. She was with LA Media the day before that. And she did it a couple of times. She went out of her way a couple times to say, hey, Joanna Jędrzejczyk is my gym mate, not my teammate. And I thought that was pretty interesting. And, she did clarify, listen, it's nothing personal. I'm not saying I have anything bad against her. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying she's my gym mate, not my teammate. Very, kind of interesting.
Maybe planting a few seeds there.
That's what I thought, I mean, I don't think she can go down to 125, though. Because we know Joanna's probably going up to 125 at some point. But
that's very likely, and I know her walking around weight is around 135.
Right.
And I'm sure Nunes cuts down from like 145, 150.
Yeah, they are completely different sized individuals.
Yeah, but one thing I wanted to add about this retreat, and I know I know you kind of mentioned it's very much in vogue, and it's very easy to kind of hate on Reebok and the UFC for all of these bits and pieces. So one of the major storylines over the last couple of years has been unionization. The fighters coming together and all that kind of stuff. Well, for the fighters to come together and to unionize in whatever fashion, there needs to be some dialogue between them, right? Now, to get some dialogue between everybody, what needs to happen? You need to get everybody under one roof.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the UFC just got about 300 or 400 fighters under one roof for about 3 or 4 days. So there's your opportunity right there. Talk to your colleagues, talk to your peers, talk to your fellow fighters, and if you're serious about coming together with an initiative to raise the standards of your contract or your purses or whatever kind of professional freedoms you want out of this career, then talk to each other about it and put some action together. The UFC have given you the perfect opportunity, and if you can't get it done when you're together under one roof, then you're never going to get it done.
I thought about it. It was so funny. Obviously, we've seen by now the clips of Cajun Johnson, of Leslie Smith getting up and saying something, and it did occur to me. I mean, how funny would that be if that was really the catalyst? This because I mean, the UFC has always said, and Dana has always said, listen, man, we're not anti-union, and I don't think they're necessarily like anti-union, but I also think they're not like, let's help them get it started. You know what
Definitely.
I mean? Like, it's like, well, I mean, we're not saying we're against it, but we're cool if it doesn't happen. And I did kind of think about that. How funny would it be if that retreat ends up being the catalyst? But because you're right. I mean, you got to get everybody together, and that's such a rare opportunity to have that many people in one place to be able to talk about things.
Yep.
And I still don't know. I feel like it's trending in that way. Like, it's got to happen. I mean, I thought it was cool. You saw that clip of like Kobe Bryant, talk to him and be like, hey, you guys got to have each other's back. You got to have each other's back. And I feel like it's moving that direction. I feel like people are starting to open their eyes a little bit, but all these false starts from these organizations and associations just has me thinking like it's never going to happen.
I think for this generation of fighters, time is running out on the big piece of the pie, which is going to be the TV deal. Mm-hmm. This new TV deal that'll come into play in the next couple of years will probably end up being a decade-long TV deal, something in that ballpark, right? So if you're not even going to get a slice of that, you're not even 1% of that income and that revenue, then that's you done for your fight career. It'll be the next generation that'll have to get something done.
Yeah, because there's no way you could come to the table and be like, hey, we've got this association, and we'd like to negotiate part of the deal that you signed 3 years ago.
Yep.
Like, you can't do that, right? It would have to be any kind of new deals.
Yeah, exactly.
Fuck, what a shame that would be, man. Because you're right. I mean, look, what if you go through all that effort and you're like, cool, we got this thing done, and now we're going to have to wait 10 years to really cash in on it. You know what I mean? Like you said, your fighting career is done at that point.
Yeah, I think Cajun Johnson is the one that said it this week, where he'll have to be the sacrificial lamb and is willing to be the sacrificial lamb, not for himself, but for the next generation of fighters. But how many fighters in the current roster think that way?
Exactly.
They're thinking about the here and the now, their bills, their families, and their financial safety for their lifetime.
And who doesn't? I mean, that's kind of what we all think about, right?
Well, that's what I was wondering with the whole UFC retreat thing in Las Vegas. Like, for all the fighters that will be gathered there, for the chance that they have to be able to unionize in some way, for the ones who actually go there, how many of them are going there for the interest of, oh, this seems cool, maybe the UFC can help me out in their own way, and how many are going there and thinking, yeah, let's talk to people, let's unionize.
Probably not as many as should have.
Exactly. I'm thinking the ones that were there were probably not the ones thinking of unionizing.
Maybe at least now they'll say. Now, the UFC hasn't necessarily said they're doing this retreat every year. I mean, pretty pricey. It would be cool, I think, if they could. I don't know if they will or not, but maybe, people do see that the next time they go. Because, the first time they do something, you're like, I don't know, let me wait and see, I'm not sure. But maybe a second time around, you go with that intention, like, hey, listen, this is going to be, as you said, Sandhu, a rare opportunity, to have this opportunity to do this. Maybe this is the time we do it.
Yeah, unless you're John Travolta, you don't want to be the first guy on the dance floor.
Wow, I like that. That's the only reason you're here right now. You just earned your keep, Seb.
That's it. I got it early.
Nice. All right, well, listen, I am going to get myself another cocktail here. So while we do that, I want to play a quick interview I had with Joe Carr. I actually sat down this past week with about 40 minutes with Joe Carr. As you know, we're kicking off this crazy 4-week swing with 4 international events. I'm an idiot in doing all 4 of them. It sounded like a really cool idea when I was booking the travel, and then I started facing the reality of it, and I am an idiot. I'm not going to be gone from home for a month. I figured out that it's like 35,000 miles, which the equator is 26,000 miles, so I'm flying more than around the Earth. It's ridiculous. So, but anyway, I sat down with Joe Carr, and I'm going to roll these out in pieces because what we did is him and I talked for 45 minutes. I'm not going to play all 45 minutes now, but we talked about each market in specific for about 6 to 8 minutes to 10 minutes. Kind of get just a little feel of the pulse of that market. And we talked about Europe. We talked a little bit about what happened in Copenhagen. Talked a little bit about when they might be back in your neck of the woods in London, and got an update on France as well, which is basically Europe's New York at this point. There's just no reason for us not to be there. I think we all want to cover an event in Paris pretty soon,
Hell
right?
yeah.
Definitely. So we get some updates there. So while we freshen up our beverages here, take a listen to Joe Carr. If you haven't met him, you'll probably be seeing more of him. There's no regional directors anymore in the UFC like there used to be. So I think you're going to be seeing him do a lot of media and basically on the international markets. He is the senior vice president of international and content. So if you don't know the name Joe Carr, know the name, and you can tell people you found out about him right on the MMA Roadshow because he was kind enough to give us some time. So appreciate it. All right, we'll be right back. Obviously, Sweden has been a good home to you guys. I'd say probably tops outside of London in terms of how many events it's held. It had the stadium event, of course, as well. I guess, first of all, I know there was talk about this maybe being in Copenhagen. It just didn't get done in time. I guess, how did we end up back in Stockholm, and why has this been such a strong market? As you said, there's so many places to potentially go in Europe. Why has Stockholm and Sweden been such a good market?
Yeah, it's funny how Scandinavia has just really emerged, and it was in a short period of time. I think, can't give him enough credit, but I think Alexander Gustafsson really started that. But now you have, fighters coming in from Norway, Mr. Finland, Denmark, a little slower. We love going to new countries, and a brand new arena just opened in Copenhagen. So the thought was, hey, should we go there and open that arena? We couldn't kind of work it out in time with they were going through their opening process. And we hadn't been to Stockholm since the Gus and Rumble fight a couple of years ago, which was tremendously successful. I think that was like 28,000 people. So, from a matchmaking perspective, it lined up perfectly with him wanting to fight and being available to fight. We just knew we were going to be successful there, and we have a great broadcast relationship with Viasat there. We're in a long-term deal, and they're obviously eager to support it, and it does a lot for their business. I guess just in general, when you think about our events, there's no better marketing tool than bringing a fight week to a market. Like just the amount of earned media and PR and buzz you get, you can't even replicate that. You can't even spend your way out of that, right? So we think of it as our biggest marketing asset. So that's kind of strategically how we decide where we're going. It's kind of like, okay, where are we going to make this investment? Because they are investments for us. They're expensive. The events are expensive, and there's a finite supply. So you have to be very, diligent about where we're going. And Stockholm's always been good to us, and it's just the right time to go back.
Where is Europe in terms? It feels like, I guess, just from a fan perspective, I don't know the business side of it, but it seems like MMA, the UFC brand, is probably hotter than it's ever been. Obviously, you got European champions for the first time, and it seems like things are going in the right direction all across Europe. Would you say it's like the biggest it's ever been? It's the hottest it's ever been right now?
Yeah, undoubtedly, especially when you look at like the talent and the champions that we have coming out of there. And I think a lot of it has to do with us actually making that commitment a few years ago to start bringing events. We used to, maybe we go to the UK once a year, and we did one event in Scandinavia, and it was very inconsistent. And we decided, hey, we're going to plant our flag in Europe and do 5 or 6 events a year and really try to grow this sport and the business at the grassroots level. And I think what it does as well is if you're doing 5 to 6 events a year there, it forces the matchmakers and the scouts to actually find local talent, right? Because you have to sell. So I think it's completely opened our eyes from a talent perspective to signing people from these different markets. We have people from all over Scandinavia, Poland, Germany now. Even France is coming up. We haven't had an event there, but we have French talent. And obviously the UK's exploded, UK and Ireland. So it's definitely, I think there were some critics a few years ago that, we're expanding too quickly and it's diluting the brand. But I think the returns are there when you see it from a talent perspective and what we've been able to do on the TV side and the sponsorship side. And I think broadcast distribution is a big piece of it too. We've been able to have like meaningful deals with some of these partners in these regions, whether it's Viasat, whether it's ProSieben in Germany. Obviously BT relationship's been strong over the last few years and consistent. That's the other thing, our broadcast was inconsistent in the UK for a number of years. We were just bouncing around, and now we've had that runway with BT at least, where people have gotten used to, consumers are conditioned to find our content there.
Well, France is kind of that last hurdle. It's the New York of Europe, right? Sounds like tide's changing. Is it too early to start putting a goal date on it? Is it just, hey, we know things are better, or are you guys thinking a year, 2 years?
Well, they created an observatory. I think it was maybe the beginning of the year, and with the ultimate goal of figuring out, okay, what is the best way to regulate MMA in France? It's a federation model. Every sport there, for the sport to even be allowed on television and formally recognized, you have to have an amateur federation. Good news is we do have an amateur MMA federation in France as part of our IMMAF umbrella. So it's how do you go about that process of putting the rules and structure in place to get that formally recognized? Does it become an independent federation? Do you go in under a different combat sport, whether it's wrestling or judo, whatever it is? And that's the process we're going through now. The content's already on air. We have a TV deal, and it's just about getting the politicians comfortable that, hey, we have the proper rules. It's an education process too, though, because I think the market's just that far behind where people think it's still kind of a lawless sport, and they don't realize between the USADA drug testing and all the other work that we're doing in the unified rules. It's just more of an education process. I was over there 2 months ago and met with a number of the politicians and the different stakeholders, and you'd be shocked at how little people know about it. And once they understand the scale of the business and even the commercial opportunities that it could bring in the participation, because the reality is that all of the people training in France and all these other disciplines are starting to migrate and train in MMA as well, and you have a lot of people that are crossing over. So the talent base is already there, the appetite and the demand is there. We're looking at doing UFC gyms as well, and now with Francis, Tom Duquesnoy, obviously, as his profile continues to increase, especially being a native Parisian, I think we're going to see, a lot of momentum over there. So it's too early to put a timeline on it, but I'd love to say that, we'd be recognized in the next 12 to 18 months, and maybe, end of 18 for an event, beginning of 19. That's our hope. I mean, can we accelerate it? I hope we can accelerate it, but if not, I think that's probably a reasonable timeline.
So I guess just to wrap up Europe, I mean, overall, this commitment that you said, 5 to 6 events a year, does that kind of seem like it's the thing going forward? And I know, Gary Cook back in the day used to preach tent pole type, time of year, cities, repetitive. I mean, is that still something that's a goal to hit, London every year, to hit, Stockholm every year? What do you see as the future of Europe? Yeah,
I think there'll be some cities that will become kind of tent pole events. I think London's probably the best example. That's the one market that I think we commit to every year. If you've noticed, there's been kind of a February-March event the last few years. We already have the March date next year, whether I should announce that or not, but we have the March date locked in because the O2 is the busiest arena in the world, so you have to get your dates early, right? So we're going to lock in London every year. Stockholm's been consistent, but not every year. But the challenge is, the balance for us is that we have other markets we want to grow outside of Europe as well, right? So do I think that we could do 7, 8, 9 events a year and have the demand to do so? 100%. But at the end of the day, we don't want to have our overall calendar go from 40 to 50 events overnight, right? Because you're worried about, talent and dilution, and we always want to make sure that every card we put on is UFC caliber and UFC quality. So it's tough to expand Europe by 3 events a year, because where do you take that from, right? Do you reduce your events further in Brazil? Do you take Asia events? Do you reduce Australia from 2 to 1? So that's the balance. So I think we've hit a pretty good rhythm with the 5 or 6, and we've been able to balance going back to kind of our core markets, but also expand into new markets. And I think next year is a perfect example where, looking at the calendar early, we'll probably be back to 3 markets we've been, but then the final 2 events, we're taking a hard look at a Moscow and potentially going back to the Middle East as well, and not necessarily Abu Dhabi. There's other markets there, and there's interest. So it's definitely a balance, and sometimes it feels like you're just trying to, it's almost like portfolio allocation to an extent, but there's no shortage of opportunity.
Welcome back to the MMA Roadshow. That was Joe Carr. First of all, 2 things. Number one, I knew there was something wrong. It just didn't feel right as we were doing that first segment there. And then as soon as we took off our headphones, I realized there was no music at all. Did you just turn the music off again, Per? Okay, I just can't hear it right now. Okay. As you said, we're used to having a little bit of a...
normally on the road show, a bit of an atmosphere, a bit of,
Yeah, there's people fighting outside. It's something going on.
Felt like a studio. I think it was good. The second thing is, so I brought this money with me, some Swedish krona that I had from a previous trip sitting in my room. And it's not a lot. It's 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. About 140 krona, which is, I guess right now, like $18 or something like that. You know what I mean?
Like that.
But we went to go buy some stuff earlier, and I gave it to Pear to go buy some stuff, and he said the store won't even take it. This is an old money now, and they won't even accept it.
Yeah, you had your chance.
Can't take money from man. And
on the plus side, we can make it rain and not worry about the consequences.
it's literally just monopoly money now. It's so ridiculous. All right. Anyway, so listen, the other thing that happened this week and happened right before we actually made the trip to fly out here was the Ultimate Fighter 26 tryouts in Las Vegas. The women came. I got to be honest with you. There were some great names there. Some really great names there. But I was surprised there weren't more. I was surprised there weren't more big names. And I guess we kind of have to take it with a grain of salt because they very well could have just already been in communication with UFC matchmakers and like, hey, man, I really want to be on the show. Yes, you know what? We're going to have you on the show. You know, because I thought we'd see like more Invicta names and more talent there that kind of ranked opponents basically at the flyweight division, and we didn't. So with a UFC title on the line, I was surprised there were less than 50 women. So like I said, I'm kind of taking it with a grain of salt that maybe there's some people that basically already know they're in. Because, the strawweights, they had the cast all ready to go. This time they had an open tryout session. So I wonder if they've got some of the cast already there and they were just hoping to fill a few holes maybe.
Well, or it could be perhaps some of the fighters are starting to smarten up. And perhaps their managers are starting to smarten up. And do they want to be stuck on a tough contract for a couple of years? Or do they want to perhaps go in the Yana Jacek route and skip tough, just enter the division as a newly signed fighter, and just make your way up that route? I don't know. That's just
it
mere
could be.
speculation on my part.
It's funny because we actually had interviews with Agnieszka Nejevic. Is that how you say it? I tried.
Close enough.
And Andrea
Lee. It's as close
Lee,
as we're gonna get.
Yeah, that's close as I'm getting anyway. And Andrea Lee, we actually did do interviews with them last week from Invicta. They're both flyweights, and they both said, I want to be in the UFC. I don't want to go on tough. So it may be a lot more of that than I thought. I mean, I thought it was just limited to those two people, but with you saying that, yeah, you're right. Maybe people are like, hell with that. I don't need to do that.
Let's face it, look at all the things you got going against you. I mean, aside from the contract bit, there's the whole, okay, you're isolated from your friends and family. Should you get injured somehow, some way, you might be out of a tournament, out of a running. You could be the best fighter in the entire house, and you might get your chance just off, maybe because of something your training partner did even.
So true, man. Yeah, you can get hurt.
There's just so many risks in going into that. I mean, look at I'm thinking of Martin Svensson, who was a guy who I trained with, who was in Ultimate Fighter McGregor against my mind's blanking here. It was McGregor against
was it Mendez?
No,
Mendez.
Faber.
That's
And then
it.
Mendez
That's
stepped
right.
into the fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking
Martin
of his
Svensson.
fights. I'm like, what fight?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like Martin Svensson beat the Ton Lee, one of the guys
Right.
picked for winning the fight. What happened? He got injured, and then he just didn't really come back from that. And it's like I see so many situations like that playing out in the Ultimate Fighter, where like you see these top-ranked guys who like maybe get injured, don't really come back strong enough
So
afterwards,
true,
and all those risks. Perhaps
So
take
true.
a couple fights, fight a couple cans, beat 2 cans, first round knockouts, both of them, and you got your ticket right into the UFC.
And also, the marketplace is a lot different now than it was a few years ago when the UFC was introducing the women's divisions. You've got Bellator now that have got the women's divisions. So should you perhaps work your way up in an Invicta or some regional outfit and then build up a portfolio of wins and a record and be, okay, UFC, what are you willing to offer me? Bellator, what are you willing to offer me? It's a more open marketplace now, and
crazy to go from not having a home to like now I can negotiate.
Which is the way it should be, right? And women's MMA is as hot as it's ever been, if not hotter right now.
Yeah. So true, man. I hadn't thought about that. It's kind of like what we're seeing with Gegard Mousasi, right? He's saying, I don't really dig what the UFC gave me right now. I'm going to go test myself on the open market. I feel like a lot of the people that went over to Bellator, like, basically had their mindset like they were going to Bellator, like, regardless. It's like, I think we kind of knew Rory was leaving. Lorenz Larkin, I think everybody he'd basically said, like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? So, but to not necessarily be dead set on actually leaving, but saying, I'm going to go get the offer, and I'm going to come back to the UFC and be like, do you want to match this or not?
Of a bunch as well, who were very willing to test the waters, didn't really like what they had to offer, came back.
The times, they are a-changing.
They are changing, man. It's exciting. So this was something that I did like about the Ultimate Fighter. So this was kind of crazy. If you remember when they announced it, they announced middleweight. Well, first of all, let me say Valerie Letourneau. That was kind of weird to see her there. She was awesome. We did an interview with her. She was really cool because I was like, you have to be like the bitterest person right now. Like you wanted this division so bad. She was awesome. But middleweights. So they originally announced when they set up this casting call, they were going to do women's strawweights, women's bantamweights, and male middleweights. Eventually they said, no, we're just going to do women's flyweights, and we don't want male middleweights. Well, when we were there, myself and Cold Coffee got there to start filming, we saw a couple of male athletes there that were like in gear, looking like they were ready to work out, and it was like, well, maybe they're just coaching, or maybe they're just here to support or partner or whatever, right? But no, they were there to try out, and the producers had to like basically tell them like, sorry, man, we canceled that. Like, so there is no open casting call for you. But there was this one guy, Michael Cora was his name. And we're going to have an interview out with him. Cold Coffee's got the video footage. We're going to put it out probably next week sometime. But this was awesome. So this kid was one of those middleweights, right? But he actually found out, not on that day, he found out the day before, so only one day before. But he already had tickets to come from Florida. He had a plane ticket from Florida. He had a hotel booked. And he said, to hell with it, I'm going anyway. And while I'm there, I'm going to make sure I don't leave until I talk to Dana White or Sean Shelby or somebody else. And son of a bitch, he stuck around the whole time. It was fun because, he's sitting there and Dana wasn't there. Sean Shelby wasn't there. It was, he had to wait for a while. And I was like, man, this is not looking good. And he saw us filming, and he walked up, and he was like, hey, man. He's like, I'm actually a big fan. He's like, what do I have to do to be on camera? I'm like, well, I have no idea who you are, so I don't know what I would talk to you about. And he explained the situation. I'm like, oh, hell yeah, I would love to talk to you about that, because it was crazy seeing those middleweights get sent away. Because, can you imagine that feeling? Like, if you really didn't know that it had been canceled, like, dude, you woke up that morning and you're like, I'm going to get my dream today. I'm going to get my spot in the UFC. And you get there and they're like, oh, bro, sorry, man, we canceled those tryouts. And you're like, dude, my whole life, it's gone. So this dude's attitude was so great. And I wanted to talk to him about, like, how that feeling was and how he handled it. But sure enough, man, he stuck around, and Dana got there, and the producers and security let him go talk to Dana. And he went to talk to Dana, and Dana was like, you know what? I'm going to give you a shot. I'm going to put you on the Tuesday Night Fight series. The Tuesday Night Fights they just announced. Yeah. Dana White's Contender Series or whatever, July 11th. So this kid, he was going to try out for middleweight. He's actually a natural welterweight, so they're going to put him in a welterweight fight. So now he's not even going to have to go up a division to do it.
Nice.
But the tenacity of this kid to stick around and talk to him, they're going to give him a shot. Now, those fights they're still mapping that out, and Dana wasn't ready to talk about it just yet. They're kind of still fleshing some details out from what I understand. But so it's not exactly a UFC fight. Like, it's going to be held at the Tough Gym, and it's going to be obviously in the Octagon. And I'm sure I don't know, I don't know if they'll be wearing UFC gear. Maybe they'll just be wearing, like, the plain clothes. I don't know what they're going to wear. I don't know what. And it's not even a guarantee. It's not one of those things where it's like the Ultimate Fighter, like, hey, if you win on the Contender Series, you're automatically in the UFC. Like, it's just going to be some fights to help, give some value to Fight Pass, basically, for people to have some live fights. And if you happen to impress people and, they want you to stick around, and then maybe you'll get a shot. But I don't know, man. I thought that was such a cool story, and we'll have the video out of it sometime next week. But I don't know. I thought that was such kind of a lesson for other people, you know what I mean? And just a shining example of how you do, man. And I take away nothing from those other middleweights that were there. They were told to leave, so they left. You can't blame them for that. But for this dude to be like, nah, man, F that. Like, I'm gonna stick around and talk to Dana. And then for Dana and now that they have this fight series, they have a slot for it. I don't know, man. It just warmed my heart, man. Maybe I'm a bitter old person, but it warmed my heart.
No, I love this story, and it kind of goes a little bit back to the example I was talking about earlier on in regards to the new facility in Las Vegas, and maybe perhaps fighters making the effort to be there, because you got this kid willing to travel all the way to Las Vegas just to hope and pray that he gets a couple of minutes with the boss Dana White, so he can hopefully get some sort of conversation going and get his foot in the door. Where if you're a UFC fighter, like I said before, having that face-to-face interaction with your boss and other executives is so important for relationship building and getting opportunities that perhaps aren't available to you if you're going to be halfway around the world in Australia or Thailand or in Stockholm training, right?
Mm-hmm. I can't wait.
I can't believe everyone thinking this is a little bit unfair, though. Because let's face
the other
it, the UFC is notoriously very strict in its rules.
Right.
You be here this time, you do this and that. Hurry up and wait. You have to hurry up and be here by 2 o'clock. Okay, now you're waiting until 3 o'clock.
Right.
These kinds of things, which I think both media and fighters alike will recognize. And a lot of the middleweight fighters who were told to leave, and they did,
Don't ruin my good story, Seb.
It's a great story, and I hate to be that asshole who comes in here and ruins it. But honestly, it's a little unfair. I don't know. I just feel like I'm really glad of this guy that he actually managed to do it.
I guess, by the way, I hate to interrupt here, but
yeah, I'm getting off track here. I'm getting stuck.
But Pear just brought by the official MMA Roadshow beer.
The new one to celebrate.
Labeled J. Morgan and Cold Coffee, brewed by both a brewery.
Okay, this is pretty amazing.
Everyone, just check John Morgan's social media.
Dude.
This is gonna get posted for sure. We're all posting it on social media.
Definitely post this. This is awesome, man. Did you make these, Pear? Wow,
You made this beer?
That is awesome, man.
All right,
Frosty
right
beverages all around. Yeah, and perfect timing too, because Seb was ruining my warm fuzzy moment from the.
I was.
I tell you what, I'm anxious to see this. So again, they're still figuring out the details for this Tuesday night series, but from what we've been told, it's not going to be like open to the public, but they will allow media there. So obviously, since we live in Las Vegas, we're going to be there as much as we can to cover these fights. It is so weird, and I think they're going to allow like some family maybe like they do for the first round of tough fights. They're still trying to figure all that out, but I'm telling you, the opportunity to watch fights at the Tough Gym, I got to do it the Ultimate Fighter 15, the live season. I got to go see some of those live fights. It is the weirdest feeling, dude, being in that building, which is basically, it's about the size of this room that we're sitting in right now, to be honest with you, just with higher ceilings. But it's so funny because all we do, we're ingrained in the sport, right? Like we watch fights all the damn time.
Mm-hmm.
But to do it in a room where there's like not loud music playing, there's not bright lights, there's not a crowd, like you can literally. You guys know when you watch that show, you hear the feet moving on the canvas, you hear every
awkward
punch.
as hell.
It's weird, dude. I would say it's like I feel like voyeuristic or something. Like you're peeping on somebody banging or something. You know what I mean?
You know what? I'd be afraid
thing.
of like sneezing or something and distracting a fighter, and he gets knocked out and blames me.
Totally, you could. I'm telling you, it's a crazy. But so I'm kind of excited for that. It's unique. You know what I mean? I'm anxious to see how this thing plays out. It'll be more live content for the people on UFC Fight Pass, which is what they're pushing for, but I think it's going to be kind of a unique experience.
And I think that's important, and I think we've all been waiting for some more content for Fight Pass, because I think long term, where every type of media content, no matter who you are and what kind of sport you're in, is headed towards, is digital. And maybe one day every pay-per-view around the world, regardless of what time zone, is just distributed through Fight Pass.
Crazy.
Right? Who knows? But until you get to that point, you've really got to put some kind of hustle and muscle behind content. And I've always compared it to the WWE Network. And year on year, quarter on quarter, their subscriber numbers are growing. And they're investing a hell of a lot of money into original content and programming for that network. And the UFC needs to follow suit if they want to have the same success as the WWE Network.
Obviously, I don't follow WWE or whatever.
Sure.
But financially, if I remember, it was kind of a flop to begin with, right?
Yep.
But they've built it up to now it's a success.
It is, and I think as time goes forward, when they can maybe start to raise the price, and it goes from $9.99 to $14.99 without affecting the subscriber numbers too much and what have you, then you'll start to see some more profit revenue come in. But initially, it was a hit to them because at the time, they were having a lot of success on the North American pay-per-view market, where their target group and their target market were paying $40, $50, $60 to watch their monthly pay-per-views, and then for then the same group to just be paying $9.99 per month for everything.
It's pretty amazing.
It's pretty amazing, right? But here's the thing, right? It's now a global network.
Right.
So instead of focusing all your efforts into that US or Canadian, North American pay-per-view market, you're now targeting the world. They just, because obviously, it's all scripted. They just they just crowned their very first Indian WWE champion. That's massive. India's got 1.7 billion people. Now, for the first time, that market has a WWE champion, and there's a rabid, passionate pro wrestling and WWE fan base over there. And it's funny because
they're just looking for like a 280-pound Chinese dude right now.
But it's funny because the same week he became WWE champion, the UFC just signed their very first fighter of Indian descent in Arjun Bulla, who's a heavyweight based out of Vancouver, Canada.
Right.
So it's interesting to see how the UFC and WWE kind of start to position themselves as they start to explore these international markets.
The thing is, and of course, Eric Winter's not around anymore, but you guys, Eric used to come out here quite a bit. I know we've all had cocktails with him. He was always very out there and free to speak with the media, most of it off record usually, but he was always willing to talk. And from everything that we've ever heard, because the obvious thing is, right, like to me, charge $30 a month for it, but include the pay-per-views. You know what I mean? Because I think that's what people want. Is just get me all my content in one place. And I know it's not like we're the only ones that have ever told them that. I'm sure they've heard that thousands of times, and probably from their subscribers as well. And they never seemed like they were like, nah, dude, pay-per-view's still really big for us. Pay-per-view's still really big for us. And so I think they feel like they have to do both simultaneously, have their pay-per-view and do Fight Pass. But man, you got to think at some point, like I mean, like it's $10 a month right now, and I hear some people. I like it. I use it, but of course,
I use it too.
But it's kind of our job to use it too, right?
Yeah.
So if you were a fan, I would still think for $10, if I was just a fan, I'd get it. But dude, if it was like $30 a month, but it included a pay-per-view, who wouldn't do it?
Well, here's a nice little caveat for you, a little wrinkle, if you will. So when the WWE did this, they still had all of their pro wrestlers who were performing on these monthly pay-per-views. They would get a percentage cut of that pay-per-view revenue.
Oh.
They didn't have it in their contracts that, hey, when we get this WWE network off the ground, you're going to get a percentage. So they took a hit on revenue. Now, here's the funny thing.
I didn't know that.
Technically, you can still buy WWE pay-per-views on pay-per-view, right? So they haven't told the wrestlers, hey, we haven't stopped this revenue stream coming in.
So wait, if you want to pay $50 instead of $10, you can?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right? Now the funny thing is,
ingenious.
now imagine you're a UFC champion or a former champion, but in your contract you have pay-per-view points. All of a sudden, sorry, it's all moving over to UFC Fight Pass. You don't have pay-per-view points in your contract. You don't get a cut of the pie. How do you manage that conversation? So and that's just one small layer. There's many layers to why you wouldn't, distribute your product on pay-per-view versus a digital network.
And that's the reason why it's going to be so tough to unionize. You think Conor McGregor gives a shit about, what Joe Schmo that just signed on? It's going to be a tough challenge. Let me ask you a question. Do you know how those wrestlers, and I was spending way more time talking about wrestling than we normally, but it is interesting. Do you know how those wrestlers got pay-per-view points in their contract? Because I can't imagine what kind of, certainly they don't have any collective bargaining or anything, right? How the hell did they get that?
It was a different time, John. A lot of these wrestlers came up at an era where there was competition. So you had the WWE, you had the WCW, you got New Japan Pro Wrestling. Where we are right now in 2017, there is no competition.
It's WWE.
It's just the WWE, and they can call all the shots. Now, there's a handful of pro wrestlers who are making a really healthy living on the independent circuit, whether it be in North America, in Mexico, or in Japan. But that's only a very, very select few. So it's pretty much, hey, here's what you're going to get paid, take it or leave it.
But there was a time when they actually had bidding, showing again the importance of having other markets out there.
Well, in all fairness, that's kind of what we're seeing now with Bellator getting so many UFC fighters. We're talking about KSW doing a stadium show of 50,000 people. Admittedly, that's extremely regional.
Right.
Nothing that will ever branch out to the United States or Japan or anything like that. But if you just look at numbers, Jesus Christ, that crushes a lot of independent shows. It's the reason
Khalidov has never come to the UFC, right?
Yeah,
he makes so much bank in KSW. How amazing is that, man? It's the Poland market. I can't wait. We go back to Poland, I guess, in November, right? But God, man, it was so interesting to me when we were there the first time. First of all, Krakow was an amazing city, man. We had a great time there.
I loved it.
Man, it was fun. But it was amazing to me to see, and now we're seeing again how KSW has such a foothold in that market. Like, the UFC did that arena in Krakow, and I think there was like 9,000 people there that night. They
struggled to fill it up.
Yeah. KSW sold it out in like an hour. The same building.
And it was
the same building.
I think we had twice as many seats.
It's crazy.
Just shows how strong the KSW brand is in that country
in that one market
versus the UFC.
So here's the thing.
Well, let's face it. There's all these regional stars that just are not going to branch out. There's this super tattooed up guy in KSW. I forget his name because it's impossible to pronounce. But he's tattooed like from his forehead down to his toes. And you got all these personalities that are so regional, so local and stuff like that. So it's like, of course they're going to get that they're going to get their whole city with them.
Well, see, here's the thing that's interesting to me is, talking about the open market and that sort of thing. Like the news came out, right, that Rory made $400,000, okay? Amazing. $400,000 is awesome, right? But, like, should Bellator really be paying $400,000? Like, did they get $400,000 back out of them? And that's what's interesting to me because, of course, we all want fighters to make money. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to, like – are they getting $400,000 worth of value out of them? I mean, did they get $400,000 worth of advertising versus ticket sales versus of whatever, you know?
Well, the reported gate was around 11,000, which equated to just over $1 million US.
That's strong.
So
that's strong.
You give 400,000 of that to Rory. That doesn't count the TV revenue that came with Channel 5. That's just the UK market. That's not even counting the Spike market in the US. Maybe it is worth it, John.
Wait till we do a Canada show.
Yeah.
That'll be huge.
You go to Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, sell out.
Rory McDonald title fight in Canada.
And then now in the pay-per-view
That's
market, with better, they've got their pay-per-view coming up in New York City.
Honestly, they're thinking long-term, I think. And that means they're thinking smart.
But, I mean, so, like, for instance, when Scott Coker was running Strikeforce, okay, I guess we can say now that Joe Silva's retired or whatever, like, he's basically said in conversations before, off-record conversations, that it was his job to drive up the contracts of people in Strikeforce. You know what I mean? It's like, let's toy with these people a little bit and say what we would pay them, and let's get their offers up. And eventually, it wasn't like Scott Coker sold Strikeforce because they were so profitable that they were just like, I'm making so much money, I'm tired of it. I got to get out. They were losing money, right? I mean, I don't think they were like hemorrhaging money, but they wanted to get out. They had to free up some of their assets. So I just wonder, man. I mean, like, it's good. I mean, the handful of people that are cashing in right now, good for them.
Yep.
But, I mean, not everybody can go sign a $400,000 contract at Bellator, right? And I think that's a little scary if everybody's like, well, I'm just going to get up and go.
And I think on the opposite end of the scale, they still have fighters on their cards that are getting, I think it's $2,500 to show and $2,500 to win. So the overall average.
That's true, too.
The overall average of an entry-level UFC fighter versus an entry-level Bellator fighter is still night and day, right?
You're better off being an entry-level UFC fighter,
Yep.
except that you're probably facing stiffer competition.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's way easier to go 3-0 in Bellator and make a really shitty amount of money. And then you got, I mean, no disrespect if they go, but you got someone like Kostya coming over. Long loss streak, hasn't won since, 2013, something like that. Probably getting so much more money than fighters with win streaks in Bellator.
So crazy, man. I guess it's just like Demetrius Johnson was saying the other day, right? It's the only sport in the world where the best athletes, the best fighters don't necessarily get the best money.
Yeah,
And then you've got Vitor Belfort this week saying he really would love to fight Wanderlei Silva and Chael Sonnen. Well, gee whiz, I wonder who they fight for, Vitor.
Yeah.
I didn't see that he mentioned them specifically. Did he really?
I wonder where he's going to be heading after his dad bod exits the UFC.
Bell Legends League. All right, we did briefly mention Dana White. I should say long-term listeners of the MMA Roadshow will know that we've been trying like hell to get an interview with Dana White. That would be for MMAjunkie as well, of course, not just for the Roadshow, but it's been rescheduled for the end of June. So we missed him in the first quarter. I've got a one-on-one set up with him that we will keep our fingers crossed the date is kept. The man does have a busy schedule. All right, let's talk about this card a little bit. Sandhu, you got to sit down and do some interviews today. We came in, got things started a day early, and sat down with some of the kind of early card fighters that we're not going to see tomorrow. And we spoke to 7 different people, and I think I know the answer, but give me your favorite interview from the day.
There were 2 that really stood out for me, and I think for all of us, really. The first was Abdul Razak Alhassan. What a wonderful story. So this kid is a judo world champion from Ghana. Went over to America, spent a little time in Minnesota, then ended up in Texas, of all places.
Yeah, my backyard.
And ended up getting a kickboxing coach, and a hop, skip, and a jump later, he ends up getting his first MMA pro fight. Now, the funny thing here is at the start of the day, I was speaking to you, John. I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen this guy fight. Look his record up on Wikipedia, and this dude has got 7 wins, all in under a minute or about a minute and a half. His longest fight is 1 minute and 26 seconds. They're all by knockout or TKO. He actually fought on the Belfast card just at the back end of 2016, and I can't remember him. And it was fascinating because we were talking about this earlier on today. He wasn't available to the media on that particular show. And we're quite fortunate here at MMA Junkie, where a day before the official media day, we do get the opportunity to sit down with, half a dozen of the fighters and get that kind of exclusive one-on-one interview time. And I was fortunate enough to kind of get, the opportunity to interview all the fighters today, and it's a whole different experience when you're scrumming and trying to get one or two questions in versus getting just a sit down 10 or 15 minutes and really dig deep. And for anyone that's kind of listening, I highly recommend look out for this guy. Judo Thunder is his nickname. The interview is already up on MMA Junkie, so check that out. And the other one is Alex Nicholson, and there's only one word to describe Alex Nicholson, and that is intense.
That was the one. That's the one that was in my head.
Yeah, this guy had brought some intensity. I literally asked him like 4 questions during the interview, but what he gave back to me was just fire. It was just money, and I feel as though he's coming into this fight with a lot of passion and a lot of energy and a lot of emotion, and sometimes you just get that gut feeling about whether a fighter is going to perform if they're in the right mental frame of mind to get the job done at any cost, and that's what I took away from that interview.
I agree, man. Alex Nicholson and Mike Perry, they're boys. They go way back. Alex Nicholson's dad, who's here with him, actually coaches them both, and man, they get a bad rap. I mean, and I'm not trying to defend all they've done. They've done some things that are a little bit out of line. There's no question about it. But as far as them just as fighters, I love their intensity. I love what they bring to the cage. I love just kind of getting to know those guys. I think they're good dudes at heart. They both said some dumb stuff on social media and, some dumb stuff in the corner. We talked about that earlier. I mean, and I'm not trying to excuse all that, but I guess I feel like I can still appreciate somebody both as a person, as a fighter, even in spite of maybe some flaws they have or whatever. And dude, I think that fight with Alex Nicholson and Jack Hermanson is going to be – I think that's going to be fire.
Oh, yeah. I have a hard time seeing that not being exciting.
Right? I think that's going to be – all right, let's do this because I want to crack open this official MMA Roadshow beer from the Bofa Brewery. So we'll do that, and while we do that, let's hear which one do you want to hear first?
Well, are we going to play the interview?
Yeah.
All right. You know what? If we're going to play one, let's go with Alex Nicholson.
All right, let's start with Alex Nicholson. We're going to do both. I'm going to do both. So we'll do
All
Alex Nicholson because I agree. It was super intense. And while you guys do that, I'm going to crack open this MMA Roadshow beer. And my man, Pear, dude, I'm thinking about it.
Honestly, this is perfect.
Alex Nicholson, welcome to Stockholm, Sweden. Now, before we kind of get into the meat and bones of this interview, what is going on with this beard? Because that's a mighty fine beard you're carrying right now.
I figured it'd be a little extra padding. It worked for Roy Nelson throughout his career. So, and you can't be a Spartan without a beard. I've never lost a fight with the beard. So, savage beard, savage fight.
Do you believe in stuff like that, having good luck charms and bit of?
Not really, but I always feel a little bit more savage with my beard, so decided to grow it out. I was going to trim it, but I was like, it is the land of the Vikings, right? So
that's true, very true. So we just had this UFC athletes retreat take place in Vegas. Obviously, you're here in Sweden. Your boy Mike Perry was over there.
Yeah.
Did you miss out? Are you a bit gutted that you couldn't be there? And what was the kind of feedback from Mike about that?
I lived vicariously through Snapchat. He had a great time. He tossed Jeremy Stevens on the ground. He had a good time. It looked like it was a really good thing. He got to meet the owners. I don't know. I think it might have been a better thing that I stayed away. Obviously, with the fight coming up, a whole bunch of fighters and alcohol and attitudes. It doesn't seem like it mixed too well, but it was a great thing they did. I'm looking forward to the next one. Mike got to meet the owners. Mm-hmm. He said he talked with the head wigs, and he liked what they say, and it's good things coming our way. So we'll just keep dropping these guys and increasing our paychecks, and it just seems very promising. So we'll see what happens.
Well, another big story in your life right now is your other half expecting a baby very, very soon, right?
It's a blessing from God, man. I never imagined it would be like it is, and every step of the way. You see pregnant women all the time, but when it's your kid, and I see him moving her belly now, and see that he's moving, he's real active, and it's a crazy, crazy thing, and it's got me real motivated. I've never... I've always been kind of selfish as a fighter in this career, and you kind of have to be. I'm sure most guys would agree with that, but I always felt like I had to do it for myself and just me, and if I lost, it just fell back on me. but this is my job, and now it falls back on her. She's dependent on me, and my son will be depending on me. So nothing's gonna stop me. I've never been one to quit anyway. I'm sure you guys know that. You see my fights, but I'm more motivated for that. You know, it's a bigger thing than anything that I've ever had to do. It's hold you responsible, I hold you accountable for your actions, for everything you do. And in training, when I'm tired, it just pushes me through to know I'll have Odin and Hannah to provide for, and this is my 4th one on the contract. Go take care of business, put this guy, out of there for my family and for myself, but more, for them. I got 2 dogs and a cat at home too. They need toys, they need food. We just got a house, I got a truck, things are picking up, and he's not gonna take this lifestyle away from me, and he's not gonna take that money that can go towards my son away, and it's real serious, like no room for error, and that's been my mindset in this training camp. Somebody's got me down, I get up and out. Somebody's landing shots, I land more shots. So it's really pushing me, and I'm really, God put this in front of me at the right time, and I plan to do big things for them. And my sister's got babies. We got a family to take care of, man. We the more money I make, the more things I can get them. And it's not everything, but it makes things easier. So I don't see anybody taking that from me, and definitely not this man.
Well, let's talk about this man, Jack Hermansson. He's the Swede, but he's never fought in his country before. This is a massive opportunity for him to fight in front of his kind of home crowd. So are you kind of expecting to kind of walk in as the villain, so to speak, in this arena on Sunday night?
I'm used to that. I fought in Pensacola against a hometown kid just before Roy Jones Jr. I had that pressure on me before, and I always do well under pressure. Pressure makes diamonds. But I find it unfortunate for him that it's got to be me at this time in my life, because I don't see anything. It's real, I feel the fire in me, man, and he'd literally have to kill me for me to stop moving in there, and I'm not gonna stop, man. I'm not going to. So I wish him the best after, but for now it's fuck that guy for now, man, and it's got to be like that. Like, 'cause I'm real serious about it. He's tagged me in some of his things. Like, he just tagged me in one of his workout videos, and my response was, I'm gonna crush your skull in. And don't tag me, don't mention my name. I take it real personal, and I'm gonna go out there and be real serious. I'm gonna hurt him. He's not gonna take my health away from me. I'm gonna have this fight, and then a kid a month later have to be healthy. I'm not gonna make any mistakes in there. I'm gonna be the best version of myself. And his hometown's gonna have to watch that, whether they like it or not. It's gonna be what plays out. I played it over and over in my head. I fought bigger. I fought a heavyweight. Chase Sherman just had a great fight. He's a friend of mine now, but I knocked him out in the first round. I took him out faster than any of the heavyweights in the UFC. I mean, I fought bigger, stronger, more technical strikers, and I've submitted better grapplers. So I'd like to see what he plans on doing.
Welcome back to the NBA Roadshow. That was Alex Nicholson. Intense. The man brought it on the mic, and I think he's going to bring it in the cage. I love that fight, man. I really do. It's probably, to be honest with you, one of the fights I'm most looking forward to on the whole night. Let's talk about this card. We kind of talked about Alexander Gustafsson flying under the radar a little bit, but I think this card is definitely flying under the radar a little bit.
Everyone is.
And there's a reason for it. I mean, again, not much media travels over here. I think, I guess we're probably the only international media that made it over here. So probably some European, but some's going to be at KSW. But man, for the light heavyweight division, this is a big card, right? I mean, you got some key fights in the light heavyweight division, and I don't know if it's just because, I mean, certainly right now all the focus in the light heavyweight division is on John Jones and Daniel Cormier, right? We cannot wait to see that fight. The heat that they brought at that press conference was fucking awesome, dude. It was so good, and I think we're all fired up about that. And maybe it's just because have we lost the importance of like the Gustafsson Jones rematch at this point? have we gotten to the point where
I
nobody
think that's-
cares anymore?
Well, I think that's what his camp is going for. I think that is truly what his management and what his camp really want to reach towards, because they've brought up Jones's name a lot over the past couple of years after a fight, and it definitely seems, honestly, let's face it, let's just pretend we're some kind of financial economist, something like that. That is a fight that makes sense if you're in any way connected to Alexander Gustafsson.
Oh,
That
yeah,
is the
for
fight
him
that
especially.
you want if you're in any way connected.
Win or lose, right?
it
Whether
doesn't even matter.
Jones wins against Cormier or not.
Oh yeah,
You still want the
doesn't
fight,
even-
right?
I mean,
Because it's a huge fight
Jones
with great
can
history.
lose and then fight Alexander Gustafsson and knock Alexander out in the first round, and it will still be the most profitable, the most interesting, the most marketable fight that you can get out of him.
But I just feel like, for whatever reason, man, and I don't know if it's just because Jones and Cormier is just overpowering everything right now, or it's because we're in Stockholm and there's no media here. I mean, this is a big card for 205 pounds. This main event is a big fight at the lightweight division, and I don't know, man. It just doesn't feel like there's much importance to it right now.
Yeah, I get it. Stakes. That's what we want, and especially in the main event, we want stakes, right? And I think heading
steaks.
into this fight on Sunday night,
Medium rare.
you know, even if Gustafsson wins, if I'm just the impartial Brit MMA journalist that I am, I think Jimmy Manning was still ahead of him. I have to say, given his track record, given what he's done, given the fact that he's flown in, had that conversation with Dana White, and he's going to be on the same card as Jones and DC. Apparently, that's what's going to happen. I think.
Which is super smart, by the way.
Yeah.
Super smart to
because-
have him on that card, just
yeah,
in case.
of course it is. I think he just nudges him right now. Now, if Gustafsson smokes Glover first round, cuts a promo, which is, it's not impossible, but it is Alexander Gustafsson we're talking about here, right? But he cuts a promo and he makes a beeline for Anaheim or Jones and DC. Then perhaps we can start talking about this a little bit more. The thing that Gustafsson's got on his side is two of the greatest light heavyweight fights of all time. Two of the greatest are John Jones, Alexander Gustafsson, and Daniel Cormier, Alexander Gustafsson. So he's always got that in his back pocket, and I think any fan that bought that on pay-per-view or was in attendance for either one of those fights would love to see that ran back. So he's got that in his back pocket. And unfortunately for Gustafsson, during this period of the last couple of years, the light heavyweight division has been pretty much stagnant, right?
Yeah.
And the most emerging contender has been Jimmy Manuwa, who also doesn't speak that much and promote himself to the level of a DC John Jones.
It's interesting, man.
And he trains with Gustafsson, so it's like a title eliminator there would be pretty tough.
I am curious to see how this all plays out. And again, I don't know if it's just because I just flew in yesterday and I'm probably I didn't sleep very much last night and I'm still a little jet lagged, and I know I've got 3 more international trips coming up. That maybe I'm not like personally vested in this one as much as I should be. I really don't feel this is a big fight. This is a big fight.
You're not alone, John. You're
and
not alone.
It's not. It doesn't feel like a big fight, and it is. It's a meaningful fight with stakes. Maybe not clear stakes, but stakes that can be there, and it's weird. So, let's ask you this, guys, from a European perspective. Just throw out there, whether it be from the prelims, the main card, all the way down, something that you're looking forward to. Mike Bond actually hit me up earlier. I guess he was putting together some numbers, as he does. Our little stat guy, Mike Bond. He said. He was like, hey, listen, I'm not sure if this will help you in any way, but there's fighters born from 14 different countries competing at this event, which is tied for the 3rd most ever on a UFC card. The second was Croatia. The first was Rotterdam. So it definitely does have that international feel. It's like these European cards. Of course, as you see all those European cards, it's like they're dumping grounds for all the fighters with it. Like, put them on the European
You're
card.
from the ass end of Europe. Fight here.
So, but I wonder. But there's still. Let me ask you first. While you guys are kind of thinking about that, I did want to ask you, Seb, about one Swedish fighter, Reza Madadi. Why do I like Reza? And I know he's got a bad history too, man. I know he's had some questionable decision making as well. I suddenly realized I gravitate towards fighters that have horrible backgrounds. But no, I like Reza. He's always been very good to me. So he's a pleasure to talk to. Love him on the stage, dude. Like the weigh-ins, like you're getting a show.
He's money.
He's money, dude. Just on the scale and like. the stare down that is. First of all, they should never make him walk first because to have to sit there and wait for the person to walk.
That's not cool.
He should always be the second one so he can get off the scale and just mad dog. So I love it. But we ran into him. We're going to talk to him tomorrow because he's going to be at the media day. But we ran into him, and it was weird because we had kind of been all the time. I mean, he stepped into this fight on short notice, but he had said he wanted to fight one last time. Like, he wants to call it a career, right? And so he was very nice. He walked by today, and we didn't get an official interview, but I was just like, hey, what's going on? Good to see you. I'm like, bro, so this is it, man? This is the last one? He's like, nah, man, nah, dude. He's like, nah, man, no. I was like, what? So are you retired? Because it didn't make sense to me. Like, I can't imagine anybody wants to retire on a short notice fight. But doing it in Stockholm, his hometown, that makes sense. So I don't know. Do you have the inside info here? Is he scamming us? Is this it? What do you think?
To be honest, I think a lot of it will depend on how tonight goes because I don't really think he's sure himself. I think there's a lot of uncertainties going into this. I mean, let's face it, he's 38 years old. It's not primetime UFC in terms of age. He isn't really coming in there. I mean, he's coming off of what is it? Not 2 straight losses, but 2 losses out of his last 3.
Right.
And if this is not his last fight, it will be one of his last fights. He hasn't really made it clear exactly what he wants, and especially considering the circumstances of his fight, the fact that it is a short notice replacement, and this and that, it does cast a lot of uncertainty onto it. But say he either wins or loses in spectacular fashion, I would not be super surprised to see it end soon because he's had a lot of problems recently, and should he continue to lose, I don't see the UFC holding him very much longer, and I have a hard time seeing him really having a passion to continue if he isn't really considered among the top like he has been previously. I mean, let's face it, he beat Michael Johnson, who was one of the best lightweights
What a
in
great
the
result
world.
that was, especially in retrospect.
It was amazing, and as someone who was also a fan of Reza Madadi, I remember jumping up to my cameraman and hugging him for that fight because it was like seeing Sweden score a goal in the championships in soccer or something like that.
It's interesting, man. The funny thing about retirements is that, because as you said, it may depend on like how it goes, the results. Like Dana always has a thing. If you're thinking about retiring, you probably should. And I think he usually uses that kind of in a negative way. You know what I mean? Like, oh, if you're saying retire, then just get the fuck out. But I do think there's legitimacy to what he's saying. And what sucks is I think sometimes people are like kind of down to that last performance, and they have a great performance, and they're like, I can keep doing this. You know what I mean? And it's like, no. Like, to me, I thought Vanderlei should have retired when he beat Stan in Saitama.
Yes. Yep.
Like, dude, that was the perfect moment. I thought Nogueira, legend that he is, I thought Nogueira should have retired when he knocked out Shab in Brazil. You know what I mean? Yeah. People are crying in the crowd. I mean, what a great moment this would be. But, I mean, you can't deny people another paycheck if they want to make it. And I don't know. So it's interesting to see. All right. Enough of that. I am just interested to see how it is. I did want to ask you one other, because you said offhand, Damir Hadzovic is a buddy of yours. Is that right?
Yeah, we've been friends since before the UFC, actually.
I'm not going to pretend that I know a shitload about Damir, but what I will say is I started following him on social media just because I'm terrible about social media, but I'm starting to realize the importance of it.
Hey, you stepped up your game today, son.
You see what I'm doing? I'm stepping my game. I'm trying to do more. And so I added a lot of fighters and this sort of thing, and I added Damir. I'm going to guarantee you that even the hardest core of listeners, including my mom, probably doesn't know a lot about Damir Hadzovic. That dude is funny, man. His social media is like, he's got a sense of humor, man.
Hilarious. And honestly, hang out with him for 10 minutes and you will laugh a couple times. He's a great guy. He's a guy he's got an 80% finish record. Let's be honest about that. I mean, he finishes the vast majority of his fights, and the ones that have gone to decision have been pretty clear-cut decisions.
Right.
He's beaten ex-UFC fighters like John McGuire in convincing fashion, first-round knockouts, and he got a pretty tough
Mairbek Taisimov, who was supposed to be on this card and is actually who Reza stepped in for.
Exactly, yeah.
And I'm not going to lie, even though I was happy that Reza stepped in because I liked him, I wanted to see Mairbek, man. That dude's talented. So you're right. I mean, that was a tough draw in your UFC debut.
And this is not an easy draw either. I mean, he's facing
Marcin
a top-ranked grappler, probably one of the best grapplers in Europe in that weight class. So we've got a guy who is in Damir Hadzovic, who is an extremely skilled striker. He's very good on the ground, of course, but I think definitely in terms of this fight, he will prefer standing. So
and more importantly, he's funny.
He's hilarious. just what I'm looking forward to most is the post-fight win interview, because honestly, he's gonna say something hilarious.
Oh, I think he just went on record with a prediction there.
Yeah.
I think so.
Or are you saying you can't wait to talk to Martin Held?
I hope he's got a crowd, because he's jerking the curtain tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Well, hey,
He's opening the show tomorrow night.
you can jerk my
Or on
shirt.
Sunday night, damn it.
I was just waiting for that. All right. Okay, listen. So we threw it out there. Give me a fight that you're looking forward to. One, I mean, we touched on the fact that I think all of us believe that Alex Nicholson, Jack Hermanson could be a lot of fun. We touched on a couple other ones, but any fights that stand out to either one of you guys that you're saying, man, I got my eye on this one?
Fucking yes, sleeper fight. Darren Till, Justin Ayari, two guys, finishers.
My pick as well. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Darren Till, a guy who he was on his way up. He got the draw against Nicolas Dalby. Kind of made his sort of way up stagnate a little bit, but honestly, that was an exciting fight. He got fight of the night. His fight before that was a first-round knockout. He's an extremely talented fighter, and he's facing another very talented fighter in Justin Ayari. I do not see this going the distance.
Till and Dalby, which I remember the
was
story of the
Dublin.
fight.
Dublin.
I remember the story of the fight being that one person was kicking ass and then broke their hand. Which way? But I can't remember which way it went.
It was Till who was completely dominating the first
Till
round.
was mauling Dalby, and then he broke his hand or something, right?
Yeah, and then Dalby won the last two rounds.
I remember being a draw because of that. Yeah.
And it was a great picture, because I think Dalby had this kind of multicolored parrot type of jacket at the bar at the host hotel afterwards, and him and Darren Till kind of got together and took pictures for the media. It was
Dalby's,
like a nice little
Dalby's got a
moment.
sense of style. That dude that's another funny dude.
I've
man.
never
He's
seen
a-
anyone wear that many skin-tight suits
Oh,
as Dalby.
It's crazy,
ever
man.
in my life.
It's crazy.
Combined.
All right, well, I mean, Ben Saunders. Come on, man.
Killer
Ben
B.
Saunders on the card, dude. Like he's got a chance for violence. There's no question about that. Talk to me about Oliver Enkamp, the newcomer. I don't know much about him.
I was so hoping you would ask me that. This is an exciting fight. He's got his work cut out for him. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
Nordin
Nordin
Taleb
Taleb's
is.
tough.
Nordin Taleb is the kind of fighter who just wins. I mean, it's not always the most glamorous way, but he
It's
gets
efficient.
his way around
Yep.
there. Oliver Enkamp is kind of antithesis of that. 'Cause he's got kind of a karate background. He's got an unusual stance. I think all except one of his fights, or all except one of his wins, are by finish. Most of them early on. An extremely young, talented guy. Very, how would you say? He's very. He's very good at gauging space, distance. I've seen him basically since the start of his career. I've seen him grow up. He's always been this young, promising sort of prospect, and now he's finally getting his shot. He's a guy who will throw a lot of interesting things at you. I remember seeing it was his second pro fight, and it was in Malmo. It was against a teammate of mine, and he threw this crazy spinning back kick towards the head. And I just remember thinking, this is his second fight ever. This is his, first fight on a main card, and he's throwing these crazy kicks, just not even caring. And his personality it's a little stronger than Gustafsson's, not a whole lot. So we can't be expecting a new Conor McGregor
not
as such.
saying much.
But his fighting style will definitely compensate for any shortcomings or any lack of English.
That's interesting. So let me ask you a question: is he in this fight because he was going to be in the UFC and is ready? Because I always get a little nervous when it's the local guy that steps in on last minute. I'm like, is that because they couldn't find anybody that could travel? Is that because they couldn't get a visa in time? You know what I mean? So they had to go with the local guy. So is he in because of fortunate circumstances, or is he in because he's UFC ready?
He got the fast track. He was one, hey, we're overbooked. We got an extra seat in first class. Do you want it? Nobody says no to that. He was on his way there.
Fair enough.
He got a couple good high-profile wins lately. He recently beat Frode Vitalis Hansen, which is a very experienced kind of journeyman in Scandinavia, who's fought a lot of guys who have gone forward to either the UFC or to other great things within Europe. So he was definitely on his way towards the UFC. Is this earlier than expected? Yes. I personally probably would have liked to see him go one or two fights more because he's still very young. Even if he should lose, he's got a good chance of working his way up inside the organization or coming back to it. So I'd say that this is your chance to see a very interesting Swedish stand-up talent with a lot of flashy kicks, quick, unexpected submissions. I think his first ever victory is by reverse triangle. So this is a guy who's got a lot of interesting stuff coming at you. So win, lose, or draw, this is going to be a very fun fight. I would say do not blink because something is going to be coming at the screen.
I dig it, man. Chris Camozzi, Trevor Smith, just two hard-nosed, grizzled vets, man. They're going to do it. But I tell you what, man, one that I had circled coming in, and I think, you mentioned it earlier, Sandhu, is Abdul Razak Alhassan.
Mm-hmm.
I think I saw this kid fight a couple times on the regional stage. So obviously, he did it again in amazing fashion in Belfast. The kid's got talent, and he's got it on the mic. It was a great interview today. So, as you said, that was one that stood out from today. So I want everybody to hear that. Abdul Razak Alhassan.
Abdul Razak Hasan, Judo Thunder. Welcome to Stockholm.
Yeah,
so this is
thank
my
you.
first opportunity to actually interview you, and I'm just fascinated by your story. So tell me, how do you start in Ghana and then end up in Texas in a career in mixed martial arts fighting for the UFC?
Back home, I started as judo. I wanted to be an Olympian. I wanted to go to the Olympics and stuff like that. So I went. I was the number one in my division in Ghana. So mostly, I compete for Ghana every time. All African Games, World Championship, and stuff like that. So one of the World Championship games here in the United States, in Georgia, I decided to participate in there. So, and then I came here, and after that, I didn't go back, and I ended up settling here, moved to Minnesota, actually.
Okay.
That's where I started training, and that's where I met my striking coach. And he came to my judo gym, and he wanted to teach. So he asked me, hey, do you want to join my kickboxing class? And I was like, no, I'm not really interested in that. But he said, no, you can just join my class, and you can just do it as fun to cut weight for your judo matches and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, it doesn't hurt to try. So I did it. About 2-3 months later, he came to me and told me, hey, I found you a fight. I was like, no, dude, wait. I never told you I want to fight. I told you I just want to train in with you. It's like, there's nothing I can do. I already got you the fight. Just do it. I was scared. I didn't want to do it. But I ended up doing it, and then I won in the first round. Again, about 2 months again, he said I found enough. I was like, why don't you tell me first before you find a fight? You can just do that. And I ended up doing it, and I won again. So the third time I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. Let's just do it. So, and then I just started. That's how I just got into MMA. It wasn't something I planned to do. I just got into it by my coach talking me into it and stuff like that.
Well, even though you're a late starter, you're not wasting any time. You're getting in. Like your longest fight, I think, is 1 minute and 26 seconds. 7-0, knockouts everywhere, all in the first round. I mean, that's like almost a perfect record, So what's your kind of mentality coming from a judo background, learning the kickboxing pretty late, and then you're implementing that straight away into your MMA game?
I really do not know. I think I'm a kind of person I'm very aggressive. So if I'm doing something, I want to put everything I have in there. It's not something I plan to come in and finish the fight quick. It's just something that it happens, And I'm glad that God gives me this kind of power to finish because everybody wants to fight, but nobody wants to fight the whole 15 minutes if you can finish it quicker, So and now I feel like I'm more comfortable standing up.
Right.
Than, even though I'm a judo guy, I prefer standing rather than taking somebody on the ground.
Is there a part of the judo Olympian in you that perhaps wants to showcase the judo skill set, because you've been knocking everybody out so far?
Probably, if it comes to that for me to show my judo, yes, I'll show it. But if I don't have the need to show it, I'll rather stand and throw punches and finish the fight quicker that way.
What was it like leaving Ghana and then coming to, like you said, to Minnesota? Now you're in Texas. I know that there's a little bit of crossover with Johnny Hendricks.
Yeah.
And what's it been like just settling into the US now full time and training and living there as well?
I like it because we all know how back home is, how Africa, it's hard going up there, you know. You grow up as a poor family, you know. You have to work hard to even go through the day. So moving here was kind of a blessing, you know, helped me a lot. You know, I'm able to train here, train hard, work, take care of my family at the same time back home, and then still do it. Back home, it's hard to do it. So I'm really happy I got this opportunity to do, you know.
You know, it's interesting. The UFC has held events everywhere in Brazil, America, Europe, Asia. They still haven't been to Africa.
Yeah.
You know, are you hoping to, you know, be one of the big stars representing Africa and help the UFC bring an event to Africa
By God's
one day?
grace, exactly. That's the plan. You know, I have some few friends. Kamaru Usman, he's fighting. He's a Nigerian,
Yep.
and then Francis Ngannou, you know, and what's his name? Mark.
DKZ
yeah,
from the UK.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly. So we all trying to put the African name out there so that way the UFC can go to Africa, so we can also showcase, you know, because it would be awesome to go to Africa and represent there and show them, hey, we made it, we're here, you know. So
It's interesting that you mentioned those names because I feel like there's been an explosion very recently in the last couple of years where a lot of fighters with African descent are now exploding onto the scene, specifically in the UFC. Why do you think that's happened now, you know, and maybe not 5 or 10 years ago? Why is now this big kind of new generation of fighters coming out of Africa?
I think it's because at that time there's a lot we knew about MMA because of pride, but nobody really did it. And even if we did it, we didn't have the jiu-jitsu coaches back there. We didn't have like a good Muay Thai coach back there to teach and stuff like that. So being able to come to America or in Europe, or I'll say, to learn from an actual kickboxing coaches and jiu-jitsu coaches, we're able to showcase what we can do. But back home, we do not have all that, you know, all those training, all those coaches for them to teach us. So we don't have that. But moving here and having all those kind of coaches here to teach us, we're able to show, hey, we're here, we can do this, and we have the heart, we have the power, and we're here to take over. Africans, we want to show them that, hey, don't look down on us. We're coming.
I like it. So you're an African training in America, but now you're fighting in Europe, right? So what's that like? I mean, do you like fighting in Europe? You fought in the Belfast card,
Yes.
and now you're fighting here in Stockholm. Do you like fighting here?
I love traveling, and I you know, I love Europe too. So coming here and able to fight here, it's amazing. You know, you get to see different countries, see different places and stuff like that. It's really amazing. So yeah, look, if all my fights can be out of the country, I would definitely do it. You know, I really like it. And you know, one thing that surprises me in Ireland, I'm always in an enemy's territory. You know, but the last fight, even I won over their own guy. They showed me so much love, and I was really happy about that. I was like, I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting more of them to boo me and be like, hey, we don't want you here, be one of our guys. But they showed a lot of love, so I'm like, I like this place. You know, I want to come to Europe more and fight here more if I can.
Omari Akhmedov, what does he bring to the table? What do you need to be prepared for? And when you close your eyes and kind of envision the fight playing out in your mind, how do you win?
Nobody goes into a fight thinking he's going to lose. You know, I always envision my fight, I want to finish with a knockout. And even if I cannot finish with a knockout, I'm going to make sure I'm going to dominate the fight the whole way. And I can definitely say he's going to be one of my biggest challenge. I can say that for sure because I know he has a lot of heart, you know. Every Russian have a lot of heart. I know we all know that. You know, they come in hard, they fight hard, big puncher. You know, so I know he's going to be a big challenge to me. I would never and ever underestimate anybody. Like I don't care how many fights you have, even if it's just one fight. I would never underestimate you. I'll come in as hard as I can, but I know I'm going to overcome him and win this fight for sure.
Welcome back to the MMA Roadshow. That was Mr. Abdul Razak Alhassan, Judo Thunder. I gotta say, man, it was so funny when you were talking to him today, Sandhu, and you know he's talking about the African connection, and he's like, man, me, Kamaru Usman, Francis Ngannou, Mark Diakaze, straight up, like I think we all just started looking around the room like, take my money, dude. I'm in, dude. Put you guys all on the card. Hell yes, dude. I'm in already. So
put them on an Africa card.
That's what he's saying. He wants to kind of do the whole Africa thing, man. I think that'd be awesome. So, all right, listen. Here's the last thing I want to talk to you about. Every MMA interview right now, when somebody does it, they have to end up talking about the same thing, and that is Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather. We actually talked about it a little bit. We've got a video that's kind of in the works right now. We'll probably get some more answers for it tomorrow, but we kind of went about it a fun way, and we'll save those answers. We won't tip our hands, so to speak, right now. But it was a lot of fun. Basically, we approached it a little bit differently. Rather than getting people to break it down or say what they thought about it, we just asked people, how much would you pay to watch the fight? It's going to be a pay-per-view. It looks like it's going to happen. What would you pay? Because people are talking about maybe it would be 100, maybe it would be 70, maybe it would be whatever. And the answers were good. So I think it's going to be a fun video once we get it all done. But I just kind of want to get your guys' perspective from a European point of view, because it's interesting who you talk to. You know, depending, I literally hear people that are like, oh yeah, this is a done deal, and then I hear people are like, I honestly believe this fight will never happen, and that it's still just a marketing ploy. You know what I mean? So like, it's so crazy to me that there's people with this wide of a range. I can tell you that in Las Vegas, where I live, everybody's pretty much assuming it's a done deal and it's going to happen. You know what I mean? But I wanted to know over here, you know, Conor McGregor's quote-unquote home base, if it's not Southern California. You know, the European market here, obviously a very strong boxing market as well here. I mean, boxing is doing great. God, that Joshua fight.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that Anthony Joshua fight was so good. And
Amazing.
God, we were talking about Lomachenko earlier today, man.
Yeah.
Oh, that dude is so fun to watch. So anyway, I know it's a big boxing market over here, but give me an idea over here. What's the feeling over here? Are people assuming that the fight's going to happen, and are they looking forward to it?
I think those of us within the indigenous MMA community can smell what's around the corner and that it is going to happen. But when I kind of speak to some friends in London, they're asking me, hey, is it going to happen? I'm not sure. There's no way they'll do that. There's no chance. And a lot of disbelievers out there. But me personally speaking, I can be confident in saying that I think it will happen. I think the train has kind of so-called left the station here.
Yeah.
It was obviously, look, it was one kind of hurdle to get a deal done between Conor McGregor and the UFC. It's definitely going to be a much bigger hurdle.
Oh, definitely.
To get the deal done with Mayweather and Showtime and all the other different business partners that are involved in this particular endeavor. But let's not forget, Mayweather wants this too. This will be his final big, massive payday. Right, he can go out 50-0, nice round number, and cash out in a massive, massive way. There's just no way he's going to ignore this opportunity, because it would probably be the easiest fight or the easiest boxing match of his life.
Well, that's what I think too. I mean, I'm of the opinion it's going to happen too. There were a lot of people. I saw some people coming out saying that it was non-news when people were reporting on, Conor and Dana saying we got our end done, and I get it, because I get how. It is wrong to say this is 50% done, because that wasn't 50%, but it was important because that's a step that had never been taken before, and that it was official. So I do think that was news, but I do think it's not 50%. But I'll say this: I think it's going to happen too, because exactly what you said. Floyd has said he wants to get to 50-0, and I don't mean this disrespectfully against Conor McGregor, because I'm not saying that Conor can't win, because he can. It's a fight. That's why we love the sport, right? Anything can happen. Yep. But if you're Floyd Mayweather, bottom line is there's probably 2 fights in the world on the table for you right now. And he doesn't need to fight, let's just say that. But the man likes his money, you know what I mean? If he can come out and make $100 million, if he can make $100 million against Conor McGregor, or say $70 million against Triple G, you know what I mean? I'm sorry, all day it's the bigger payday with Conor. And, dude, I mean, no offense to Conor, but Triple G is a proven boxer. Conor is not a proven commodity, you know what I mean? So technically, in quotes, without being disrespectful, he's the easier fight.
Here's an interesting thing about Mayweather. His biggest pay-per-view, his best dance partner was Manny Pacquiao, right? Mm-hmm. And that was based upon pure meritocracy. Mm-hmm. A pure boxer versus a pure boxer, 2 different styles clashing. Let's find out who the best is. In this equation, you're looking at 2 of the best sports personalities in the freaking world. 2 of the best showmen in the freaking world. 2 of the biggest pay-per-view draws in the freaking world going head to head. This isn't about a clash of styles and a clash of boxing skill sets. This is a clash of, or a coming together of, two different worlds, two different martial artists coming to compete under one form of combat sport from two different parts of the world, and they represent two different generations, and there's so many things that they represent that is different, but they're so similar in ways as well, and it's so fascinating. And this kind of bleeds into why we were asking the fighters today how much they'd be willing to pay for this particular event, because I think everyone deep down in their heart knows that we're not going to tune in to see some all-time classic boxing match. It's FOMO. It's the fear of missing out. It's going to be a spectacle, and you better watch this because you want to be talking about this with your colleagues and your co-workers on the Monday morning, because if you haven't watched it, you're going to miss out on that conversation.
Anna Hulatan was on MMAjunkie Radio last week, and Gorgeous George asked her straight up. He was like, listen, I'm going to put it to you like this. If it was Mayweather-McGregor, and for whatever reason, Triple G and Canelo was on the same night. Both were scheduled the same night. Which one would you watch live? And she was like, Mayweather-McGregor all day. And George couldn't believe it. He was like, what? Like, dude, this is this is ridiculous. This is a non-boxer stepping in. And it's exactly that. Dude, Triple G versus Canelo is going to be a phenomenal fight. Yeah. And I want to watch that. But it ain't the spectacle. You know what I mean? It's the funniest thing. I'm telling you, every interview I do, like when I do a radio hit, people are asking me about a card, but they always end with that. And they also say, I really don't think it's competitive. Like, I don't. And I'm not taking away Conor's chances. I think Floyd outboxes him over the course of 10 rounds. And that's that. And he takes a 10-round decision, right?
You know how to make it competitive?
But I ain't missing it.
Hell
There's
no.
no way I'm missing it.
Make this into a kickboxing fight. And you've got something a little bit different.
I don't think it's competitive. It's a kickboxing match. I think Conor kicks his ass if it's a kickboxing match.
You do?
I do.
I think in a pure boxing match, dude, Floyd,
he'll just kick his knees and he'll start to buckle after a few rounds.
Mayweather has got some of the best footwork in the entire game. He simply has to extend that footwork. I'll be surprised if he hasn't already, simply because of McGregor's MMA-based style. He's going to have to change his footwork regardless.
It's funny that you mentioned kickboxing, because I'm not going to mention who, but check out the video when it goes live on MMAjunkie. There was one of the fighters who suggested that perhaps during maybe the 6th, 7th, 8th round of this boxing match, maybe Conor McGregor just goes for a head kick, gets disqualified, and then you have a rematch of the biggest pay-per-view box office extravaganza of all time.
Can you imagine that? Like, he's down 7 rounds to none, and he just lands a high kick and knocks him out.
I just did it out of instinct.
Like, I got disqualified, but I knocked you the fuck out. How about that? So crazy. All right, guys. Well, guys, it's been fun, but we got to drink some more of this MMA Roadshow beer right here. Bellator's on. What is the tape delay finally fucking airing for you guys? Is that what it is?
No, it's Lee McGarry fighting.
It's airing for the first time over here. No, we got it on the big screen over here. It's finally dark outside, so we should probably enjoy these 3 hours of darkness that we're going to get before the sun comes up. Believe it or not, people, the sun comes up right now in Stockholm at about 3 a.m.
3 a.m., yep.
Yeah. Insane. So, anyway, guys, it's been fun. Remember, it's a Sunday night fight. So we've still got plenty of coverage left to do. This is kind of just the beginning of our week.
Yeah. The official media day hasn't even started yet.
We already got shit in the bank. Go on YouTube. We'll have it on MMAjunkie. We got all that stuff. Check it all out. But more than anything, just thanks for listening.